Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of To The Wing podcast. It's Friday, made it to a Friday here in the last week of February. Hope you guys are all doing well. The sporting world continues to roll with NBA, NHL action, with golf. Like I said yesterday, the MLB is right around the corner, about a month away. Monday is opening day. We also gonna have some March Madness next month. So I just start off the show with this little PSA. Next month, March 17th, I believe, is the debut of March Madness. And obviously, if you're not familiar with it, it's the NCAA basketball tournament where, there's 64 teams. They play in a tournament, and it's you win, you keep moving on. There's 4 different regions, and there's number 1 seeds 2 to 16, and it keeps going. And it's honestly one of the best sporting events of the year for a number of reasons. Number one, the upsets. A 3 could be playing a 14, but you never know what's going to happen on a given day. It's like the NFL where, Kansas City on paper is probably the better team than Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay came out and won the game. You see this a lot. 2 years ago, number 1 seed Virginia gets beat for the first time ever by a 16 seed. It's chaotic. It's amateur athletics. These are not pro players. They make mistakes. They're not purified yet, so to speak. They're not NBA ready, but it makes for fantastic theater and the best basketball of the year, in my opinion. And next month, when it starts, I'll be doing probably 2 shows a week with Matt Wright, at least one a week after every weekend. The tournament runs from Thursday. You'll see the first round, second round on Saturday, Sunday. So you'll see me do a podcast with Matt, who we've seen on this podcast many times. We'll talk about all the games, the different upsets, who we see rolling. College basketball, it's been a weird year like everything else. We've seen players opt out. Jalen Johnson, one of Duke's top prospects, he opted out 2 weeks ago. Since then, the Duke Blue Devils have gone 5-0. And before he opted out, Duke looked like they might be in jeopardy of missing the NCAA tournament. And they still might here down the stretch. And it's been a year where we see these powerhouses struggle. University of North Carolina lost to Marquette the other night. We see Kentucky, they're going to miss the tournament. They're a disaster right now. And you got teams like Gonzaga, Baylor, teams out of the Big Ten like Michigan and Ohio State are both fantastic teams. Illinois was ranked number 5 this week until they lost. So it's been a weird year, but it's such a fun tournament. You get to know these kids. I correlate it to the World Juniors. Some of these guys, this is as good as they're going to get. They're not going to have any more big splashes. They're going to have this tournament. You'll know them for a couple weeks, and then they may tail off. They may never even get a kick at the can in the NBA. But it's almost a month-long tournament where you see schools battle it out to see who can take the crown. And this year it's a little different because of COVID. It's going to be played all in Indianapolis in a bubble-style tournament where, you're going to have teams in hotels. You get beat, you get the hell out of there. And as the 64 teams shrink, you'll see, more and more teams gel together. And as the regions become smaller and smaller, things of that nature will also take place. So I guess it's a fantastic, fantastic tournament. You always see good crowds. Obviously that won't be this year like everything else, but the TV product alone and the theater of the NCAA tournament is so fantastic. So Matt, I was thinking about it. Matt and I discussed it last night. So I'm so happy. So we're going to do that next month. That'll be a fun event. Still mulling over potentially doing Big Brother Canada coverage. That starts next week. If any listener is a Big Brother fan and you want a podcast with me, reach out, because I don't know who watches the show. I've been a reality TV. I'm not a huge reality TV person. Like if you said, watch The Bachelor, you'd have to nail me to the couch and like get bobby pins to keep my eyes open, because I'd never watch that show. But, Big Brother, Survivor, these competition style shows where you got to use your head more than your body. I like chess. I like things of that nature. So that's what gets me involved. But if any listener, if anybody out there wants to podcast about Big Brother Canada and you're a big fan, reach out to me and maybe we can schedule something and maybe do a couple shows a week. So that's just a couple things on the back burner. And again, if anybody has stuff you want to hear about, I know we posted on Instagram this week about different topics, guests, content that you'd like to see out of here. This is a collaboration. I want to hear what you guys want to, what you want to hear is what I want to bring to you. So, if hopefully you like me doing these solo shows. I do enjoy them because I get to riff a little bit and have some fun that way. But like I said, there's going to be roundtables actually this weekend. On Sunday, we're going to be doing a 4-person roundtable where myself, Seamus Fillmore, who's a frequent contributor here on To The Point, Sawyer Hanna, obviously the owner of Country Liberty, who did an episode of The Office with me, and Casey Ward, who's been on this 2 times. We'll be doing a show predicting Canada's Olympic team in 2022, obviously in hockey. We're each going to go through our lists. We'll debate, probably do some bickering, and that should be a lot of fun. But 3-4 people podcast. Let me see how I can moderate and how I can get better at it. But I'm always open to new ideas. So please, the fans, To The Point, this is all for you guys. So feel free to chime in, either YouTube comments. You can message me directly on Instagram at JugOfficial, or obviously to The Point on either Instagram or Facebook. So that's just a little PSA before the start of this podcast on different content that's coming your way soon, and to keep your eyes out for all of that. So into the sports world, it's been almost a month since the Super Bowl, and that's crazy to think about. It's February 26th. We're almost done in February. Tom Brady's gone through the whole thing where he's won the Super Bowl, gotten drunk, went on the lake, through the Lombardi. That's all happened. But through it all, we've seen we've seen the Matt Stafford trade where he gets traded for Jared Goff to LA Rams for 2 first-round picks and a third this year. And then a couple weeks ago, we see Carson Wentz get flipped to the Indianapolis Colts for a third-round pick and a potential first-rounder next year if Wentz can play 75% of the snaps this upcoming season. And it's not stopping there. This offseason in the NFL, when it comes to quarterback movement, it may set a record, honestly, because Adam Schefter said just prior to the Super Bowl, he put his over-under at quarterback movement at 18. And I initially read the tweet and I said, obviously I trust Shefty. I mean, he's the most well-known person maybe in the world, any sport. When I think of an insider, he's Bob McKenzie on steroids. And names keep popping up, and one that really came to mind, it shocks me, but then it doesn't, is Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson appeared on the Dan Patrick Show about 2 weeks ago, and that's a show I listen to every day. I think Dan's the best interviewer in sports media, and Russell Wilson let him in a little bit. Russell Wilson's a really guarded player. He doesn't let you peek behind the curtain, so to speak. And, he said, I'm tired of getting hit. I'm sick of it here in Seattle where, this is the crazy thing. Tom Brady has been hit the most in the history of the NFL. Of course, because he's played the most. It's not because he's had bad O-lines. He's had great O-lines, but you play for 22 seasons, it's bound to happen. Russell Wilson has played 8 less seasons right now. But if the way it's going in Seattle, in 3 years from today, so from today, three more NFL seasons, Russell Wilson will be sacked the most in the history of the NFL. Surpassing Brady, surpassing Brett Favre, Peyton Manning, you name it, with 6 less seasons played than Brady. It's crazy. He's been getting the hell beat out of him for years. Is it some of it Russell Wilson's fault? Of course. He's a running quarterback. He likes to scramble. He holds on to the ball a little bit too long. So the hits are going to come on him. But there's also times where he's had terrible offensive lines where they're coming off the blitz and he's got no chance to get the ball out. He's taking a big hit. And Russ isn't a big dude. So him taking a hit, it's probably going to have more of an effect on him than it would, 6'5" Tom Brady. And he's basically said to Dan, I don't want to go through that anymore. I want to play in a competitive team where I have some say in roster decisions, in my offensive linemen, who I throw the ball to. And it was really alarming because we've seen that, I think Tom Brady really opened eyes for the NFL where he went to Tampa Bay and he had carte blanche on what he did. He got Rob Gronkowski. He got Antonio Brown. He got Leonard Fournette. Who he wanted on that roster, Jason Light said, "Sure, Tom, you got it. I want us to win. And if you feel these guys are the people to do it, no problem from me." And it worked. And, it showed Russell Wilson. Obviously, I didn't have the sound on, so I'm sure they were commenting on it. But, he was sitting with Roger Goodell at the Super Bowl. And he even said on the Dan Patrick Show, "I don't want to be sitting with Roger Goodell, the commissioner, talking about whatever, shooting the shit. I want to be playing in the Super Bowl." It bugs me that Tom is there and I'm not. And, you see Desean Watson, these players, they want to say in the roster because they're a quarterback. You're a quarterback. You're hung up on legacy. Russell Wilson should have 2 Super Bowls right now. He's got 1. The second one was thrown away by Pete Carroll, where they decided to throw the ball at the 1-yard line, not give it to beast mode, and he got intercepted by Malcolm Butler, and Brady was gifted another Super Bowl. So, it's a big development where yesterday, via his agent, Russell Wilson has not demanded a trade out of Seattle. However, he said if they were interested in trading Russell, he provided 4 teams that he would accept a trade to because he has a full no trade clause. And the teams are as follows: the Dallas Cowboys, New Orleans Saints, the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Chicago Bears. Now, saying you're not demanding a trade, but then providing your list of teams that you would accept a trade to is the same thing. He's saying, "I don't want to be here anymore." To me, you don't provide the list publicly unless you want out of the place you're in, because it serves you no purpose. And also, I think Russell Wilson has burnt the bridge in Seattle with that offensive line. You've complained and complained about your offensive line. How can you go back in there and say, "Boys, I got all the faith in you"? Or how does the offensive line say, "I really feel like blocking for Russell Wilson today. Like, he deserves it"? If you're having an off day, maybe you let the D lineman, you're the left tackle, maybe your blind side's not so strong that day. Believe me, it happens. It's professional sports. It's petty, just like everything else in life. I don't think it's not all rainbows where you're protecting your teammate all the time. If your teammate pisses you off, you're not that invested in them. It happens. So let's just look through this list. The Dallas Cowboys. Dallas is an interesting position because they have Dak Prescott, who played under the franchise tag last year. Dallas has till March 9th to put the franchise tag on him again. That's the last day you can do it. And I suspect that they will, because he was out all last year with a broken ankle, but they really don't have a better option. He's a good quarterback. I don't think he's an elite quarterback, but he's shown the ability to lead the Cowboys to the playoffs, which, Tony Romo couldn't do. He won a playoff game. So they'll likely franchise tag him. He'll be making $37 million under that tag. It's a lot of money. Russell Wilson makes good money too. Russell Wilson's contract works like this. He's playing this year. After this season, he can opt out of next year's of the contract completely after this season. So he could play this year and then say, "Well, Seattle, smell you later. I told you this last offseason this was coming." So for Seattle, they really got some pressure here to move him. But staying with the teams, New Orleans, they've had Drew Brees forever, and it looked like he was going to retire after losing to Tampa Bay. But I find it a bit fishy that he hasn't announced it yet. I mean, NFL's been done. The Super Bowl that whole week, he didn't want to interrupt that, which I completely appreciate and understand. He played his last game about January 13th or something like that. It's been over a month. In March, the new league year starts in a little over 2 weeks. So Drew Brees, it's decision time. Like, you need to come out and make that now. Because like I said, franchise tag day is March 9th, and the new league year starts on the 17th. That means free agency. That means, are New Orleans going to re-sign Jameis Winston? they have Taysom Hill under contract. Does Drew Brees want to come back? Because, Russell Wilson to Seattle, Seattle's going to want a big package back to whoever team he goes to. I think to start, you need 3 first-round picks. He's an elite he's a top 10 quarterback. You're going to want at least 3 first-round picks. And maybe you want Michael Thomas. And then does Russell Wilson want to go to New Orleans where there's no Michael Thomas? And I know it sounds like a lot, but I'm telling you, it's going to take that because Seattle is going to have no quarterback. They're going to have to say, okay, we have to address our issue now that he's gone. Do we go in the draft? Which I'll touch on. And this is so intricate and so interesting. Do we sign a veteran? What do we do? So do they target Jameis Winston and sneak him up from New Orleans? But so New Orleans makes some sense, but I see New Orleans' window is closing. If I'm Russell Wilson, I say I'd rather stay in Seattle, play one more year, hopefully ride it out here, maybe get a Super Bowl next year. New Orleans, again, the division isn't that tough. Carolina's in a rebuild. You got Atlanta, who went 4-12, who I think they're a better team than 4-12, but Atlanta can't get out of their own way. We'll see what they can do with the new head coach. But, I don't have a whole lot of confidence. Then you have the Super Bowl champions, which is ultimately a very tough test. But, maybe, Tom's going to be another year older. How many free agents do they get to keep? Things of that nature. So New Orleans does make some sense, but it would not be my top destination. The Las Vegas Raiders. Interesting one. Las Vegas, they got Derek Carr under contract and Marcus Mariota right now. It's been rumored if they cannot trade Mariota that they're going to cut him. And it's also been rumored that he's going to be heading to New England to play for Belichick, which, we haven't really seen a mobile quarterback play for Belichick. It's always been Brady. Even Garoppolo, who was behind him, who wasn't a great mover. We've seen Cam last year to a smaller extent. Cam's not what he used to be, so he's not what he was when he was in Carolina being Superman. But, Vegas, they got Darren Waller. They got Josh Jacobs. Aguilar is a good receiver. They got Hunter Renfrow. They don't have elite receivers. Maybe they can go out and sign one. Maybe Allen Robinson, who's probably the best wide receiver on the market. Maybe they try to address it in the draft. There are some really good receivers in this draft, so you can do that as well. Vegas would make sense, but again, 3 first-rounders. Maybe Seattle says, okay, maybe they want Carr. Maybe you throw Carr in the deal to go to Seattle. And now that I'm thinking it over, that would make a lot of sense because Carr is a good starting quarterback. Last year, Vegas not making the playoffs was not on Derek Carr. Carr was very solid last year, did not turn the ball over. Their defense was terrible. That's why they fired Paul Guenther after week 14. So far, I'm just doing it on the fly with you all. Vegas makes the most sense to me because I think they have a good team. They're obviously in a division with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, who have represented the AFC in the Super Bowl the past 2 years. You got the Chargers, who have Justin Herbert, and he's looking like a stud rookie season. Really confident kid. He looks like the real deal. And then you have, obviously, Denver, which has kind of been running into a wall for a while now, who still has Drew Lock. They have their problems. Are they going to bring Von Miller back? Will they cut him? Is Bradley Chubb going to come back? So they're not really a factor there. But Vegas, again, I'll go through them all at the end again, but I like that one. Chicago. Chicago would love Russell Wilson. I mean, who wouldn't on this list? But Chicago, they could do it easily. I mean, they got Mitch Trubisky, who's a free agent. He could leave if they don't offer him a contract. He'll be out of Chicago after drafting him 2nd overall, passing on Patrick Mahomes and Desean Watson. Ouch. They move on from the Mitch Trubisky experiment. They still have Nick Foles under contract, but he's a backup quarterback. That's what he's always been best at, so he would fit that role. Looking at weapons for Trubisky, Allen Robinson, like I just said, is a free agent, so he would. I don't see him going back to Chicago. Maybe if Russell Wilson was traded there prior to free agency, he can convince Allen to come back, and they can set up a connection there. Jimmy Graham is that tight end. He had a bounce back season, but he's a little older. Who knows how consistent he'll be. They do have Cole Kmet too. The running game, David Montgomery, when he gets carries, if Matt Nagy lets him run the ball, he's an effective little runner. They still have Khalil Mack. They still have a solid defense with Akeem Hicks, Eddie Jackson and the boys back there. But Chicago, they've been waiting for a quarterback since Jim McMahon, kind of like the Dolphins with Dan Marino. So then I don't love that fit. So these are the 4 teams that were on his list via his agent. I think there's one other team that's a sleeper team that could get involved with this, because this team has been linked with Desean Watson. And if they can't get Desean, I think the Miami Dolphins should make a serious pitch at acquiring Russell Wilson. And it wouldn't be that hard to do, because you can offer Seattle, you could offer them 2-3 first-round picks. And this year's first-round pick is 3rd overall. So say you trade Russell Wilson, you can add 3 first-round picks. You can put Tua Tagovailoa, who they took 5th overall last year, in the deal if Seattle wants him. If they don't want Tua, maybe you can say, okay, well, you're going to get the 3rd overall pick. You're going to be able to pick a quarterback. If you like a guy in the draft, if there's a quarterback in the draft that you say he's a guy that's going to be a heck of a kid in this league, he's going to rip up this league, you can go scoop him up. You can take him at 3. He's yours. You got our first-round pick. We'll give you our next 2, and whoever else that Seattle really wants. Maybe it's Devontae Parker. Maybe it's a defensive player that they really like. I wouldn't trade Xavier Howard, but maybe it's Rashad Jones, or maybe it's Byron Maxwell or another player on the back end. But again, Miami's pick being 3rd overall is so valuable, because you get to pick that high. Even if they include Tua in the deal, maybe you don't want to draft a quarterback. You get the 3, you can get Tua. So Tua obviously played at Alabama. You get the 3rd pick. You can go pick a great receiver. You can pick Jamar Chase from LSU. You can pick Devontae Smith from Alabama, who Tua played with. It's just it's a connection that works. So Seattle, the 2, I've went through all these different teams. The one that makes the most sense to me is Miami, and his 4 is Las Vegas, because I think these 2 teams would be the closest to winning. And for Seattle, the trade needs to make sense for them too. So acquiring that 3rd overall pick for Seattle, they can get Derek Carr in the trade. So you get a starting quarterback who's been very good in this league for a long time. So you're not going from Russell Wilson to Geno Smith, who's their backup quarterback right now. You get a competent answer there. So who knows if he's going to be traded, but I just read that yesterday and it sounded different than other reports. It just sounds like you don't provide a list of teams for nothing. And maybe it's all smoke and mirrors and Russell Wilson plays out next year in Seattle and then he decides to move on. But in this league, if you know a player is going to be moving on after this season, you're going to be caught with your pants down and you're going to say, we have no answer at quarterback. We have nobody to play. We have Geno Smith under contract. What are we going to do? And it's interesting to see what they're going to do here. Russell Wilson's an interesting name, but there are a lot of other options that can happen too. And looking through them, Sam Darnold, he's with the Jets right now. They drafted him 3rd overall 3 years ago. But the Jets have the 2nd overall pick in the draft. They went 2-14 this past year. They just got a new head coach in Robert Saleh. Does he want Sam Darnold as his quarterback moving forward? You look at the draft. Trevor Lawrence is likely going to go number 1 to Jacksonville. After that, it's a crapshoot. Zach Wilson's been rated high on a lot of draft boards. Does he go next? He's out of BYU. If the Jets really like him, maybe they pick him, they flip Darnold. And they can get 2 picks in the first round. If they want to stick with Sam Darnold, they could trade their pick, and then you could see Zach Wilson go number 2. And Mel Kiper's mock draft that came out yesterday, he had Atlanta trading with the Jets. They get Zach Wilson. Jets move down to number 4. they can just draft another player. He had them drafting Kyle Pitts out of Florida. And in that event, if say Zach Wilson went to Atlanta, what do they do with Matt Ryan? He's an aging quarterback. He's still a good player in this league. I'm sure he's not going to want to ride the pine with Zach Wilson. Is he still the starter? Is he the mentor to Wilson for a year? All those questions. So Matt Ryan could potentially be on the move. Desean Watson. It sure sounds like Desean Watson's going to – I think Houston's going to have to wake up here and say, okay, we have to trade him. He met with head coach David Culley last week, and he basically reiterated his stance. I'm not playing for Houston. Nothing against you. You weren't here last year. You're not the reason for the dysfunction in this organization, but it's not going to work. I want to move on, and he's made that clear. The draft is only April 30th, so they have a couple months here. But you want to get your ducks in a row, and also in free agency. You want to say Houston trades Desean Watson. If they don't acquire a quarterback in a trade, well, unless you're drafting one, you want to at least have the option to sign a veteran and have your money, your financial situation set up so that you know what you have, you know what kind of money is available. So for me, I think it's important to trade him before free agency, so they at least know their draft picks, they know their stance and what they can address the quarterback situation either via a veteran, and that maybe they draft a Mac Jones later in the first round, or they move up potentially. If they traded Desean to Miami, they would get the third pick and they could draft their quarterback of the future there or acquire Tua. Jimmy Garoppolo's had one full season in San Francisco. In that full season, he went to the Super Bowl, losing to Kansas City. His other 2 years, week 3 of his first year signing there, blows out his ACL. Last year, multitude of injuries, missed the last 8 games of the season. He's not a reliable starter because he's injured all the time. John Lynch said that Jimmy G is going to be their starter next year. He said he'd bank on it. But I don't know. I don't know how you trust a guy that's only there less than half the time to play games for you where you have Super Bowl aspirations. Any quarterback can get hurt on any play, but Jimmy Garoppolo has shown he's injury prone. And for San Francisco, I would want Desean Watson. If I could somehow get him, if Desean accepted a trade to play and Kyle Shanahan could be his offensive coordinator, that sounds like dynamite. That sounds like MVP. And Jimmy G, he's capable. He's a good quarterback, but you can do better than him. And maybe they're a team that could move up and take a quarterback in the draft. Again, a lot of things can happen here. Cam Newton, he's a free agent. He's not going back to New England. I don't think he's a starting quarterback anymore. I think he proved that last year, even though he was playing with nobodies. But what does he do? What kind of money can he get? I mean, he made little to no money last year in New England. He might have to swallow his pride and become a backup quarterback. But does the team want to take a shot on Cam? Do they want him as their backup? He's a big personality. He's a big guy, big voice, and obviously carries a lot of weight around the NFL. But where does he end up? Mitch Trubisky. Again, I don't think the Bears are going to want to bring him back. But if the Bears' solution is Nick Foles at quarterback, that's a disaster too. So who knows? I think they're a team that should move up in the draft and take a quarterback because they don't have a lot. If you let Trubisky walk, like I said, you have Nick Foles. You're letting Allen Robinson walk away for nothing. They didn't trade him last season, so you probably plan on re-signing him. That's a great player walking away, and then you don't have a quarterback again, where it looks like you're going to go through a rebuild, and you get the likes of Green Bay, who's still really competitive. Green Bay's good. Detroit, they're going through a struggle. They got Jared Goff, but they're not a powerhouse. In Minnesota, they missed the playoffs last year with Kirk D. Cousins at quarterback. They're kind of in flux. So it would be an opportunity for the Bears, if they can get a quarterback here, to make a push at the playoffs and winning the NFC North. I think Green Bay's been 13-3 the past 2 seasons, but Aaron Rodgers isn't that happy. Chicago's still got a really good defense. If you can put it all together, I mean, Matt Nagy, this is your time. You need to make a move for a quarterback because you're not going to have that many opportunities. If Chicago starts the year, say 1-4 next year, I think Matt Nagy's fired. Probably Ryan Pace too. This is a huge offseason, a huge draft for them, and a big free agency where they need to address the quarterback. And if they fail to do that again, I don't see how they get another shot at running the Chicago Bears. But there's veterans. All these guys could be moving. And then you got newcomers coming in that could push guys out, which creates more free agents. Again, I mentioned Trevor Lawrence. He's going to go to Jacksonville. They really don't have a guy there that's going to push him. So they'll let Gardner Minshew. He's another guy that probably will be traded unless they want him to be the backup quarterback. Zach Wilson, where does he go? Maybe the Jets, maybe Atlanta, maybe San Fran. Who knows? Chicago. Justin Fields out of Ohio State, another quarterback that's going to be drafted. Is he a number 2? I don't think he's a starting quarterback in the NFL right off the hop. Too inconsistent at Ohio State for me to say, okay, this guy's our starter of the future. He can go week 1 in the NFL, but he's had flashes of brilliance in his college career. So who knows? There's Trey Lance, the unknown commodity out of North Dakota, who, he's playing not in top tier football, but, Mel Kiper said yesterday, if this kid, decided to stay in school, played next year, and didn't come in the draft this year, he could likely be the number 1 quarterback taken in the draft. So it tells you he's got a lot of ability. I know he's really mobile. He can, use his legs very effectively, kind of a Lamar Jackson-esque with a little better arm, said Mel Kiper. So, and then Mac Jones, who was the quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide. He was nominated for the Heisman, obviously won the national championship with Devontae Smith and the whole Alabama roster. So where does he go? He's kind of a guy who's not really mobile. He's kind of against the grain when it comes to new quarterbacks coming into the league. But again, I'm just making the point here. It's such a crapshoot this offseason where teams seem to be, they're not willing to wait, or they're just impatient when it comes to winning. They want to win. And I think some of it is the Brady effect, where teams are like, this old bastard's winning the Super Bowl again. We can't take it. Like, we got to do something about it. We need to upgrade our roster. And, it's going to be quarterback musical chairs. And there's probably teams I haven't mentioned that are pondering their future. Like, what do we do at quarterback? New England. They don't have a quarterback. What do we do? Do we get one in the draft? Do we go get Marcus Mariota? Do we find another backup that's kind of a hidden gem? It's all confusion. Alex Smith in Washington. He's scheduled. He hasn't said he's not coming back. He's scheduled to have a $24 million cap hit. Does he come back? Another guy in Pittsburgh yesterday, Big Ben Roethlisberger, via Art Rooney II, who's the owner of the Steelers, announced that Big Ben will be the Steelers starting quarterback in 2021, 2022. They need to rearrange his contract because if the season started today, he would be scheduled to have a $41.2 million cap hit, which would be a league record. In the NFL, you can rework your contract, which obviously reworks the cap hit on a player. And I suspect Big Ben will be coming back playing for Cam Newton-like money last year, where he has incentives on the deal, where he can earn additional money for rewards, for snaps, for yardage, touchdowns, things of that nature. But, Big Ben's coming back to Pittsburgh. So does that mean they're going to let Dwayne Haskins go, Mason Rudolph? So long story short here, it's going to be fun to see where all these quarterbacks go and where the league's, who's playing, what jersey is on who. We've already seen Matthew Stafford and Carson Wentz move on. J.J. Watt was released from the Houston Texans. He's still mulling over options. So, the NFL doesn't go quiet for a long time. Free agency starts in a couple weeks. That'll be exciting. We'll cover it all here. But this is just the NFL. They're a content machine where they're not going to let other sports have the limelight for too long because they dominate it. That's just what they do. They're the NFL. They have control over what you see and what you hear. And even the NBA, they struggle against the NFL. And I think it just shows the power of the NFL in this current situation. But yeah, we'll cover it all here. It will be a lot of fun. But moving to action that's actually happening on the field of play. Last night was the start of Dominic Ducharme's reign as the head coach of the Montreal Canadiens, and it started off really well, and then it didn't go so well as the game evolved. Montreal heading to Winnipeg. That's a tough first game. Winnipeg's been playing some good hockey lately. Like I said, starts great for Montreal. They get two first period goals from Yoel Armia. Great pass from Romanoff to set him up on a partial breakaway. He beats Hellebuck 5-hole. And you get Drouin finding Armia for a nice little tap in. But again, they let a goal in. Kyle Connor scores on the power play. But then Montreal answers really quickly, which is a great sign. They get Tatar, who puts one in the back of the net, who's been lacking confidence. But the end of the second period, it just shifted the game. And a guy who really did it was Kyle Connor. I mean, you look at this guy, he doesn't give up. I love his compete level. I think that's the biggest thing. And he plays in Winnipeg, but even for a Canadian guy, he's underrated at how good a hockey player he is. He'll go in the corner. He's got one of the best shots in the league. It's right there with anybody's. That wrist shot that he can be skating as fast as he can, and it goes off. It can go off the bar and in every time. And his relentlessness on pucks. He plays 200 feet. He's just a great player. And, you can go back and watch the second goal of the game where Ehlers has the puck on his backhand, sauces it over 2 sticks to Stastny. Stastny's in the middle of the ice, passes it to Connor on the right wing. Carey Price doesn't know what the hell happened. He's out of position. Kyle Connor goes roof to make it 3-2. Before the end of the period, Mark Scheifele scores a goal. Blake Wheeler scores a goal that was just a muffin that Carey Price had to save. Doesn't save it, goes in 3-3. And then the third period, Winnipeg scores 3 unanswered in the third period, 5 unanswered for the game. They beat Montreal 6-3, including goals from Nate Thompson, who's just a depth center. Pierre-Luc Dubois added one, and then an empty netter. And for Montreal, it's some of the same. Carey Price, he said after Julien got fired, I need to be better. He wasn't better last night. He's looked bad all season. He's got an 888 save percentage right now. That's not going to win you very many games. And their defense, I might have overvalued their defense to start the year. I think they're slow. I think Weber, he's still a very valuable defenseman, but he's playing with Sherratt, and they're both slow. They're both not the quickest guys. Kulak's not a quick defenseman. I think Romanoff is fantastic. I thought he played really well last night, but other than him, it's tough to look at their decor. I thought it would be better. I thought Sherratt and Weber would be just a great shutdown pair. Their power play has been abysmal. They haven't got a power play goal in 8 games. Their center ice position, I mean, just look at it. You got Suzuki, who's got 4 goals, so I still think he's going to be a great player. You can say he hit the ditch right now a little bit, but every player goes through slumps. So, I'm not writing off that kid. Kasperi Kotkaniemi. He played great last year in the bubble. He looked like a man. He was dominating against the Penguins, against Crosby and those players. He was physically out. He was just outworking them, point blank. We don't see that. I don't know what he is as a player yet. He hasn't really emerged and say, well, I'm going to be a great two-way center. I'm going to do this really well. We haven't seen that from him. So we're still waiting to see if he can put it together and be a consistent NHL player. And then there's Philip Danault. Danault's got 2 goals in his last 53 games. That's not going to work. That's not NHL production. Is he a very good two-way center? Yes, but he's not adding anything offensively. And, you need to see something from him. Is he going to be the most offensive guy ever? No, but he needs to put one in the back of the net here. You can't just say, well, Danault's great defense. I think some guys get stuck with that. Well, he's a really good defensive forward. Well, Mark Stone's a really good defensive forward, but guess what? He puts the puck in the back of the net too. So does Anze Kopitar. He needs to add something. And on their power play, for a while, they didn't have Weber on it, which makes no sense. He's got one of the best shots in the history of the league. How is he not on the first power play unit? Get him the hell out there, because nobody's going to block that shot. Or if they don't, shot gets through, it's going to create more lanes because people are going to want to cheat, and then you're going to have open space for Montreal. I still think they're a great team, and their biggest luxury right now is how pathetic Calgary and Vancouver are, which I'll get to in a second. But they got the Jets again Saturday. I think you need to see a consistent 60-minute effort. I looked at the last 10 minutes of the second period. They just stopped competing. The Jets wanted it more. I mean, in that Connor goal, which I broke down, their Weber was in the middle of the ice while Connor's on the right side. I don't know what the hell he was doing. Hanging out, giving Connor 80 feet. He's not going to miss the net. Again, on Thompson's goal, he just outworks the defenseman. He gets to a tough area. He gets one past Price. Price is a great goalie. He's represented Canada at the Olympics. He'll be revered forever. But after this year, he's making $10.5 million for another 4 years. And he needs to find his game. Point blank. Does he need better play in front of him? Of course. But I'm not going to be the one to coddle a goaltender. The referees, the Zebras, do that enough when they disallow goals because of goalie interference. So I'm not going to be the one to do that. But simply, Carey Price, make the fucking save. Making 10 tough saves and then letting in a stinker, those 10 tough saves are irrelevant. Because that stinker is the one people remember. The Brady Tkachuk goal the other night, that fourth goal that tied the game, that can't go in. That went through his body, rolled under him. That can never go in. Michael Hutchinson doesn't let that one in. You look at, again, I've referenced this one all week, but it's still the Austin Matthews second goal. That can't go in. And for Carey, if I'm Dominic Ducharme, they play Winnipeg again on Saturday, I'm starting Jake Allen. Because right now, Jake Allen gives you the best opportunity to win. Is he the better goaltender? No. But Jake Allen has been better than Carey Price this year. Let him sit there for the night. And Montreal might lose too. Winnipeg's a very good team. I had them winning the division before the year. So Winnipeg's no slouch. But I'd start Jake Allen on Saturday. He's got a .932 save percentage. He's looked good he's given them a chance to win every time he's gone out there, and he's looked strong. I'd ride with Allen, and it's not a slap in the face to Price. He's a grown man. He knows what business he's in. He's been through this. He's going through a tough time. Ducharme, let him sit there, just talk to him about it. Let him watch the game. Ducharme needs time to gel with his team so they can get new ideas. And learn his system. One game is not going to do it. But looking at last night, what would bother me the most if I'm Ducharme is just compete level. In that second period, in the third period, they had no life. They had no fight. Winnipeg wanted it more. And that's the tough part. Because I think the past couple nights, Ottawa wanted it more. Sunday night, Ottawa clearly wanted it more. If you watch that overtime, Brady Tkachuk was not going to lose that game. Again, against Tuesday night, Brady Tkachuk took control of that game. He manhandled people. He made it about him. He made it his game and his game to win. And it's tough right now in Montreal. But again, if I'm Dominic Ducharme, Jake Allen gets the net Saturday night, and I don't even think it matters if he wins the game. Obviously, you want to win the game. Then I go back to Price, but I don't just keep rolling out Price where he's giving up a 6 spot every other night. That's not the solution to me. You work with him, get him with the goalie coach, have an honest conversation with him, ask him what he needs, give Jake Allen the start, move on from there fresh when you get back home. And we'll see what lies ahead. But I mentioned Montreal, who's sitting 4th in the Canadian division right now behind Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Toronto. Well, they're sitting pretty because Calgary and Vancouver are just flat out disasters. You got Calgary last night, who played Toronto tough, loses in overtime, but they didn't deserve the point, but they got it. But because David Riddick played out of his mind, they go in last night to Ottawa, and Ottawa's been playing good hockey lately, don't get me wrong, but they're still the worst team in the division. And they beat Calgary 6-1. Just feed them their lunch and kick their ass on home ice in Ottawa. Riddick gets pulled. Clearly he was tired from the night before. And he's a backup goalie, not used to playing a heavy workload. That doesn't excuse that Eric Brandstrom goal, which I don't know how the hell that goes in from basically center ice. But he gives up a bunch. They bring in Markstrom, still hurt. But again, Calgary, they don't have goal scorers. They can't stop a puck normally. Riddick did this week, but Markstrom was hitting a ditch. They take too many stupid penalties. I mean, Rasmus Anderson the other night against Toronto just kept going to the box every other night, every other shift, it seemed like. Gaudreau and Monahan, I'll keep pounding the table. They're not winners. They're not going to get you there. And to be honest, today, we've seen Claude Julien get fired this week. I don't know how Brad Treliving doesn't get fired if this continues. They play tomorrow in Ottawa again. And I'll say this. If they lose tomorrow and the score is more than, say, 3-1, if it's 4-1 in Ottawa and it's not really close, like if it's 4-1, but Riddick made a couple big saves and it could have been worse, I think Brad Treliving will be fired by the time I do a podcast on Monday. Because he's had this nucleus forever. He built this team and is playing like shit. And again, he's fired every bullet he has. I don't think he has the authority to fire Jeff Ward, who just got the job. Treliving built this team in his vision, his eyes, and it's still failing. So I don't want Brad Treliving to lose his job. I'm just saying what I think might happen. There's no reporting. This is just me trying to first guess something. Maybe they go into Ottawa and win, which they should. Ottawa's the worst team in the division. But if you lose to Ottawa twice in a decisive manner, how are you turning it around? Because guess what? Winnipeg's not going to slow down. Toronto, who they play next week, is not going to have an easy out for you. It's, Edmonton's playing, they've won 11 of the last 13. It's not getting any easier. You're playing the worst team. So maybe Calgary makes a jump on what they're planning to do in the offseason anyway, which is getting rid of Brad Treliving and changing the roster. Maybe this is the thing. Do you want Brad Treliving, who you're probably going to fire, running your trade deadline? Why the hell would you? Because your new GM needs to have the authority to make trades and depart with players, contracts that he's comfortable with. If he doesn't want a player, then you move him at the deadline. If you're going to fire Treliving, then don't. That's what they did with Chiarelli. They let Chiarelli sign Mikko Koskinen, and they fired him a day later. I still don't know how that happened, but make the move before the deadline if you're going to make the move anyway, because then your new GM comes in and says, well, I really would have liked X player, but you fucking morons, you let him trade him. Thanks. So I'm not saying Tree's going to lose his job, but I think it's a distinct possibility. If tomorrow afternoon's game doesn't go well, you see a presser Sunday morning where it says, Brad Treliving has been fired as the general manager of the Calgary Flames. Then there's Vancouver. Blew a 3-0 lead on Tuesday. Then they go into last night and, Mike Smith, give him credit. He's 39 years old, 6-0 as a starter since coming back from injury for Edmonton. They played well in front of him too. But Vancouver's just lifeless. JT Miller has been demoted. He was played some minutes on the fourth line last night. He's a good player, but Elias Pettersson hasn't been the same guy this year. Their goaltending has been adequate at best. I think Demko and Holtby have both been weak. We've seen Alex Edler basically fall off a cliff when it comes to his play. He got old very quickly. Quinn Hughes has been exposed playing as a number one defenseman where doesn't have enough experience in the game and he's not good enough at both ends of the ice to be a number one defenseman. So Vancouver, I think they're done. They're going to be right there with Ottawa. I had Vancouver finishing sixth. So it doesn't surprise. I thought they'd be more competitive, but I'm not surprised to see them failing as much as they are right now. They don't have the goaltending. They don't have the firepower. They don't have that backbone that they did. They still have a lot of bad contracts. I mean, Jake Virtanen is still on your roster. If you have Jake Virtanen on your roster, you're failing right there. So Vancouver, I don't know. They got Travis Green, who's in the last year of his contract. Does he walk away? Do they offer him a deal? Jim Benning is like Treliving. He's been in Vancouver for a long time. if they missed the playoffs, they went to the second round last year, but it was in the bubble. It's just kind of an asterisk beside it. Montreal won a round last year against Pittsburgh. They were 24th in the league if there was no COVID. So that's an anomaly. Where did they go? I think, again, I'm not trying to fire people. I'm just trying to provide context on where these organizations are. And Vancouver, Jimmy Benning's been there a long time. He made the Corey Schneider trade. He's made these trades, and some of them have worked out, but some of them are not. The Antoine Roussel deal, the Jay Beagle deal, the Louis Erickson is one of the worst signings in the last decade in the NHL. These deals, Brandon Sutter, giving these guys long-term contracts with big money, they cripple your organization where Vancouver has no cap space and their team sucks. So what happens for Vancouver? And again, Travis Green, I don't know if I want to go back to Vancouver. They didn't offer me a deal after what I did last year, and now my team stinks. He's going to get a job. I think of him similar to Rick Tocchet. He's in the last year of his deal in Arizona. He's going to get another job in a better place with better ownership and better pay. The great golf in Arizona, great weather. You can spend your summer there, go coach in the winter, and you can suck it up in the cold and maybe try to win a cup, because that's not happening in the desert. So the biggest break for Montreal is that the team's chasing them. The team that's chasing them that looks the most potent right now is Ottawa, and they're the worst team. Vancouver and Calgary, although closer in the standings, have not shown a competitive edge, have shown an ability to play close-knit hockey in weeks. So they're no threat. Montreal needs to find their game, but they do have some time where they can play with it and experiment, because Calgary and Vancouver just aren't having it right now. Tough loss for Montreal last night. Let's see what they can do on Saturday night against Winnipeg. Beating Vancouver last night was Edmonton. Like I said, they've won 11 of the last 13. Mike Smith is 6-0 so far this year. They're 4 points behind Toronto. And for once, we're going to actually have an interesting matchup in the Canadian division, and that's Edmonton, Toronto, Saturday night. The first 4 matchups this year for me have all been pretty tired. I haven't felt any of the games that compelling. There was a game McDavid really torched the Leafs, so that there was that game. But other than that, the first game was really a sloppy game where they gave the teams a lot of credit for great defensive play. I didn't look at the game that way. I thought it was guys couldn't make a 3-foot pass. But this game has some meaning. Edmonton's played one more game. They played 21. Toronto's played 20. But, you got Edmonton's 4 points behind Toronto, and they play 3 straight. Saturday night, Monday, Wednesday. So after this set, Toronto could build a sizable lead. You win a couple games of regulation, you get more breathing room. For Edmonton, you get a couple wins here. You win 2 out of 3. You're 2 points behind Toronto. You're right there with them. So I think these are measuring stick games for both teams to see where they are. Obviously, the game's in Edmonton on Saturday, but they scheduled it for 8 o'clock because you can't have Toronto playing past 8 o'clock on a Saturday, which, it is what it is. But we'll see what I'm excited. I'm actually excited for this game. I'm going to watch some of this game because it's got meaning. It's got something where you can say, okay, this has ramifications on the standings. This could mean something down the line. Could this be a playoff matchup of sorts? But I think these next 3 mean more about Edmonton than they do Toronto. Does Edmonton have the ability to keep up with Toronto for 3 games? Can they play good enough defensively? Can Mike Smith or Koskinen, whoever gets to start, play well enough against these top teams, not the Ottawas, the Vancouvers of the world? Can he make some big saves? And for Toronto, you got a 4-point lead in the division. You got that buffer. But, they've been saying Matthews has got a bad wrist. Will he play? If he doesn't play, that's not an excuse not to win this game. That's first. If there's no Matthews, and I hear if I read something Saturday night after the game, if they lost the game, well, Matthews didn't play. I'm not hearing that. You got Tavares, who makes $11 million. You got Marner, and you got Bill Nylander. Figure it out. And this, I think it's a big series for Tavares, because if Matthews is banged up, bring something to the table. Did Tavares play really well against Calgary Wednesday night? Yes. I thought he played extremely well, but he didn't score a goal. So what does that mean? Again, it's that thing that I talked about last Friday, moral victories. Tavares had 5 shots on goal and 8 shot attempts. Woo! Moral victory. And what did that equal? Oh, nothing on the score sheet. So until you see the production, it's all a moral victory for him. And again, we don't deal with that here at To The Point. That's for fans. That's for fans to be really excited about. Well, that guy played really well tonight. So we'll see what happens. But this matchup will be fun. 3 straight, Edmonton, Toronto. Luckily for Toronto fans, 2 of them, I think Saturday night starts at 8, of course, because that hockey night in Canada. Monday night's at 11, so stay up, or I'll be watching the game. I'll be watching games. And then Wednesday's at 9. So luckily for Leafs fans, you don't got to complain about the game starting at 11 o'clock, because God forbid that would kill you. But for my parents and every other Leaf fan, you can catch a game nice and early there Saturday night. You can get to bed by 10:30 and be up nice and early Sunday morning, to ready to get attack the day. So that's good news for all you Leaf fans out there. I was worried about you, and just thought I'd update you on when the game starts. So don't fret, and you can get your Sunday morning, go for your walk, do whatever you want to do. So don't worry about that. South of the border, last night, it was 2-0 Dallas. I was kind of keeping up with this game. Dallas, Florida, playing second of a back-to-back. And Dallas got the upper hand on Wednesday. Florida's come back. They're down 2-0 in the third, and they storm a comeback. 3 goals in 3 minutes from 3 different goal scorers. Barkov starts the party. Then Strawman gets his second about a minute later. And then about a minute later from that, Frankie Vetrano buries one. Florida wins the game 3-2. Tough loss for Dallas, but Florida continues to find ways to win. Huberdeau did not have a point in this game, and they won the game. You got Strawman, who's a defenseman who's never been known for his offense, but scores his second of the year. And you got Frankie Vetrano, who's a cast-off from Boston, gets his 5th of the season. And, with Florida with the win, they stay ahead of Tampa Bay. They're 1 point up on Tampa Bay, so both teams in Florida are playing really good hockey. Tampa beats Carolina for the second time in as many nights last night. And with these wins, the division shifts, because you got Florida in first, and Carolina was in first the other day. You got Florida first, Tampa, Chicago beat Columbus 2-0. Columbus is really in a ditch right now, and Chicago continues to fight, continues to get points. They get a win 2-0. Patrick Kane gets his 10th of the season. They're in third. And with the loss, Carolina drops to 4th, but they do have a 4-point lead on Columbus, who is not playing great hockey right now. So with that Central Division, again, it's morphed into the second most competitive division because of how close everybody is. You got Florida up by a point. Then you got Tampa down by a point. Carolina's down 2 to Chicago. So it's just a logjam in the Central Division when it comes to which team's going to come out on top. And Columbus trailing by 4. So it's going to be close all year in this division. I don't see Florida. They've played enough games where they're going to be a competitive team. Obviously, the Lightning are going to be great. They're fantastic. You got Chicago, who, you always assume, okay, the wheels are going to fall off. Patrick Kane can't do it forever. But last night, Malcolm Subban gets a shutout. So there's just a belief in that Chicago team where Patrick Kane is not the type of player who's going to say, okay, I'm going to go through a rebuild here. I'm just going to come out this year and dog it so we can get a top pick. He's not buying that. He's not doing that. He wants to win as many games as he can every year. And he's doing it. He's going in night out and earning it for the Chicago Blackhawks. So kudos to them for being competitive in a year where they had little to no expectations, and they have a roster full of injuries in Kirby Dach, Alex Nylander, and a plethora of others. So good on them. And then I'll update more throughout the weekend. But yesterday, the WGC, the World Golf Classic at Concession, just at the top of the leaderboard, thought I'd update you on that. Matthew Fitzpatrick and Webb Simpson currently lead the tournament at 6 under, but it's a packed leaderboard. We got Sergio Garcia, who shot 5 under yesterday, Billy Horschel, Kevin Kisner, Brooks Koepka, all went 5 under yesterday, and then Tony Finau, John Rahm, and Patrick Reed are a few others that shot 4 under. Then you have Rory McIlroy, who's at 3 under. So this should be, it's suiting up to be a great tournament where you have some big names at the top, some really good golfers. You could even see some guys rise. Colin Morikawa went 2 under yesterday, so he could easily rise back into contention. Into contention here. So, I'll be back Sunday with the boys with our roundtable where we talk about Team Canada. I'll see what happens in the world of sports. A few games tonight: Minnesota, LA, and then Colorado is also playing tonight. Colorado, Arizona, LA, Minnesota, and Bruins, Rangers tonight in the NHL, and then some other NBA action. So everybody, we'll be back on Sunday. Have a great weekend. Hope you guys can enjoy it. It's supposed to be pretty nice weather, so get out there, enjoy it while you can. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.